Greetings, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Jazz Is Happy Hour. I am your host, Brian Zimmerman, digital content editor for Jazz Is Magazine. It is wonderful to have you back if you've been following along since last week when we launched the Jazz Is Happy Hour. For those of you just tuning in, welcome to the internet's most happening jazz bar. Super excited about today's episode. We are keeping the guest in-house, so to speak. We will be joined in a minute by Jazz's online editor, Matt McCucci, who will be walking us through the 10 albums you need to know for May 2020. Now, as many of you know, this is a feature we publish regularly on our website, jazzes.com, compiling 10 albums that we think are essential for every jazz fan each month. May 2020's feature is already on the website, jazzes.com. You can check it out there. We will be discussing those albums in greater depth here on this show, but we'll also be putting out a podcast version of this episode where you can actually listen to a few tracks from each album. So be on the lookout for that as well. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher. We're everywhere. Anyway, we are going to be getting into this episode in a minute, but first I just want to let you know about an exclusive subscription offer that we've got going right now. For just 99 cents per month for 3 months, you can get unlimited digital access to our website. So all of our interviews and album reviews, long form Q&As, narrative articles, they're all online. And for many are for subscribers only. For just 99 cents for 3 months, you get unlimited digital access. Plus, we will enroll you to receive our forthcoming print issue. It's due out in June. It's our summer 2020 quarterly issue. It is all about fusion. It is the fusion issue. We've got a wide-ranging interview with Chick Corea in there. We speak with some young up-and-coming artists who are keeping the fusion flame alive. Plus, we've got all the album reviews you've come to expect. It's a really great issue. We're super proud of it. And again, you enroll right now for the subscription for just 99 cents for 3 months. You receive unlimited digital access. Plus, we'll enroll you to receive that print issue all about fusion. Also wanted to take a minute to thank one of this episode's sponsors. I'm talking about Blue Sound. Blue Sound is a award-winning wireless high-res sound system that lets you play music in any and every room throughout your home. This is one of those sound systems that you can kind of bounce music from the kitchen to the living room to the bedroom, wherever you want to listen to the music. Control where, at what volume, and when the music plays with a free Blue OS app for your smartphone, tablet, or desktop computer. And that's it. Getting the kind of audiophile grade system that real jazz fans deserve has never been easier. You can learn more at bluesound.com or at our website, jazzis.com, where we have put together a Blue Sound buyer's guide. Anyhow, we have our online editor waiting in the wings. He is joining us from who knows where in the world, but he is eager to talk about the 10 albums you need to know for May 2020. So please welcome to the happy hour, online editor Matt McCucci.
Greetings, everybody. How are you doing? How is the universe doing today?
Oh, I suppose I suppose we're all doing well, Matt. I mean, doing well is kind of a relative term these days compared to what's going on in the world, but the Zimmerman household is healthy and a little bit stir crazy, but otherwise we're hanging in there. How about yourself, Matt? First of all, where are we talking to you from? Your background has changed since the last time we spoke.
My background has changed. I've adapted it into, something else. But I've moved house, but I'm still in Prague, and there's no chance of me going anywhere. Still a bit hard to just travel to other places right now. My flight was cancelled. I was supposed to fly back to Ireland. I'm sure I'm not the only one going through this type of thing at the moment. But, as long as I got my music, life goes on.
That's exactly right. And you have compiled a great list for the 10 albums you need to know for May 2020. And we should do our disclaimer that we do before every one of these episodes. Look, there's a lot of music being put out there every month. And, to pick just 10 is an impossible task. These aren't necessarily the best albums because so many albums are so good. These are just 10 that we thought you should know about. Interesting backstories, interesting musical concepts, and also trying to introduce you to music maybe outside of your comfort zone. If you're like me, bebop, straight ahead jazz, swing, melody guy, maybe you'll be interested in some avant-garde interpretations of folk songs from Transylvania.
Oh, yeah.
You have those in the show. If you're if you're kind of into that new R&B fusion thing, maybe you want to listen to some French accordion. We're really trying to push those boundaries. Yeah. So open your ears a little bit. And I think, Matt, the list we put together does exactly that. So What do you say we get started?
I'm ready to go. It's a very multicultural list this time.
It absolutely is. You're ready to go. You're freshly shorn. The haircut looks good.
It's growing back.
That's good. Little fuzzy, but ready to
folks,
dive in otherwise.
folks, never, before you consider giving yourself a crew cut with a beer shaver, think twice.
Or you too could end up like Matt McCucci. No, you look good, man. You look good.
Thanks.
Anyway, we're going to start things off. By the way, this list is chronological by release date. So, we don't want you to think we're ranking albums here. But anyway, we're going to start off with a new album by trumpeter Dave Douglas. It is called Dizzy Atmosphere, Dizzy Gillespie at Zero Gravity. It was released May 1st on Greenleaf Records. Matt, what can you tell us about this really cool project?
Oh, yeah, it's a good one to start with. On this project, Dave Douglas just takes a deep dive into Gillespie's music. Gillespie is one of the most beloved jazz icons of all time, and his music is just so fascinating. But on this project, it's not your typical tribute album, basically. I think it's fair to say. Actually, the fact that Dizzy Atmospheres opens with an original composition that is a double tribute to Piet Mondrian, an avant-garde painter who, like many other artists of the time, happened to also be a huge jazz fan, is symbolic. Because Mondrian used lines and primary colors to compose his works. And I feel like Douglas kind of does something like that, because he kind of takes basic elements that were innovated by Gillespie and uses it in his music, playing with his sextet here, whether he's playing original compositions or covers. And even when he does play covers of Dizzy Gillespie's works, they kind of go well beyond the typical definition of what a cover should sound like. So tradition as a starting point to try something different, something more modern, I feel like, as well.
Totally. And, it's so interesting to hear in Dave Douglas's hands, the language of Dizzy Gillespie, because what he does is you can recognize a lot of the vocabulary from Dizzy Gillespie in that bebop era, but the grammar, the only way it gets played is like the grammar is a little different. It's all in a new context. And as you mentioned, the bulk of the songs on this album are original compositions. So, it's a tribute through homage kind of. And yeah, the other fascinating thing is to hear the accumulation of influences, so you can hear how Dizzy Gillespie influenced someone like Clifford Brown, who in turn influenced Freddie Hubbard and Woody Shaw, all the way on until Dave Douglas. And the kind of accretion of influences is very kind of fascinating to listen to in real time. I really enjoyed this record and the whole concept of it. So podcast listeners, we are going to go ahead and take a spin. We're going to listen to a track. For those of you watching online, we're going to move on to the next album on our list, which happens to be one by Kurt Rosenwinkel, a phenomenal guitarist. His new trio album is Angels Around, and it was released on his own label, Hardcore Records, on May 8th. Matt, tell us a little bit about this album by Kurt Rosenwinkel.
Yeah, he's great. I mean, for a long time, I think he's been one of the best guitarists on the scene. And Angels Around actually proves that as he takes on compositions of other jazz masters in a trio setting, as well as a couple of originals here and there. What is really fascinating to me, though, I suppose, especially in terms of the covers, is that he sort of translates these compositions by other jazz greats that are usually played with horns and pianos to a guitar, bass, and drums format. And he does that very, very creatively, beginning with a dreamy take on Monk's Ugly Beauty, actually. That is just a really, really slick way to kick off what I feel is just subtly yet significantly innovative.
Totally. This is another one of those albums that genre-wise, stylistically, impossible to pin down, because just when he's getting into his absolutely rocking Kurt Rosenwinkel modern jazz stuff, he'll switch to a bebop tune. He has a long time infatuation with Brazilian music, so there's a bossa influence there. Kurt Rosenwinkel is really a chameleon. He can do it all, and just he takes a really creative approach to a lot of these interpretations. Podcast listeners, we are going to go ahead and spin a track. For those of you watching at home, let's go ahead and move on to the next album on our list. And this one is by, it's a trio, Lucien Bond, John Sermon, and Matt Maneri. This is the album I was referring to earlier, Transylvanian Folk Songs. It was released May 15th on Sunnyside Records. I was spinning this one a lot yesterday. I was like, getting ready for dinner, and it was kind of a haunting soundtrack for preparing our taco dinner. But otherwise, very cool album. Matt, what can you tell us about it?
No, I totally agree. This is definitely one of the albums that I've been playing the most this month. I mean, I just love this type of sort of transportive music that seems to come from another time. In fact, it kind of really does, because well, what we're talking about here could be described, I suppose, as avant folk, an avant folk affair charged with the expressive nature of jazz. And the project actually does draw on Bela Bartok's recordings of Transylvanian folk songs from the start of the 20th century. But even as the sort of original concept sounds fascinating in itself, it really does expand on those recordings and the music of those times to just create something different. Something that I feel also relies on the creative power of these three master musicians who clearly revel in performing these pieces in their own way. And I feel the end result is, yeah, fascinating and just one of the most transportive albums that I've heard in a long time. I too have been playing it, but not while I'm cooking tacos, when I'm just boiling eggs and doing something very, very simple because I can't cook.
You have to concentrate. This is music. It helps to concentrate too. But at the same time, so much great folk music. There's a sanctity to it, an element of transcendence, of searching, of connecting. And you certainly find that here through kind of the avant-garde creative music improvisations of these musicians. Yeah, again, I am a card-carrying member of like the straight ahead bebop jazz club. But it was totally refreshing to dive into an album like this, front to back, and really kind of open my ears up a little bit. These three fantastic musicians, and the way they communicate is just unparalleled. So podcast listeners, let's go ahead and listen to a track. Video watchers, I guess we are going to move along to the next album on the list. Switching lanes a little bit, this is Jonathan Barber's ensemble Vision Ahead. Jonathan Barber's a drummer. This is his ensemble Vision Ahead. The new album is Legacy Holder, released on his own label on May 15th. Another great listen in a totally different vein, Matt. So what can you tell us about this album?
Yeah, we're talking about something a little more modern, more contemporary here. But for sure, I really loved Vision Ahead, actually, Jonathan Barber's first album. And I mean, we're talking about a top young visionary musician. He's a drummer, he's a band leader, and his music is filled with the desire for musical experimentation, exploration, but also a desire to communicate. Much of the music here, for example, calls for unity, it calls for change. And the way it represents that, I feel, is just via the focus on ensemble playing, with Barber's own drums sort of directing the proceedings. There's a lot of cool improvisation too, but it really does feel like even the improvisation has a purpose. I don't know whether I can explain it any better, but it certainly does. And in a way too, even the way in which the tracks seem to blend one with the other gives the whole album sort of this feeling of it being compact, it's a test. It just testifies to the unity, I suppose, of the project too. And so yeah, it's really cool, really immersive, and definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, absolutely. Jonathan is part of this kind of wave of young musicians who are reaching across the aisle to the hip hop R&B scene, to kind of share influences. So if that's your vibe, if that's what you dig, yeah, you're absolutely going to want to check out this album. What's interesting, like you mentioned, Matt, is as the hip hop R&B side starts to develop a greater interest in the jazz, and kind of elevating thematically the subject matter of their songs, their lyrics, the harmonic complexity of some hip hop beats. You're seeing jazz start to reflect that on their side as well. So, artists like, oh geez, what's his name? Artists like, To Pimp a Butterfly. Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick Lamar, who are really embracing jazz and have embraced jazz and are talking about collaborations with Herbie Hancock and so forth. They're stepping the game up on the hip hop side, and you're seeing the hip hop artists return just that. And it's great to see the elevation of both genres lately. And Jonathan Barber's, is a testament to that. So podcast listeners, we're going to go ahead and listen to a track. Video watchers, we are moving on to the next album on the list. And this is a great one. It is by saxophonist Walter Smith III and guitarist Matthew Stevens. This is their album In Common 2, second installment, a follow-up their great album In Common. It was released on May 15th on Whirlwind Records. So, Matt, what can you tell us about this album?
Yeah, it's a return of sorts because they returned to co-helm a new album together for the In Common project, which now looks to be a series whereby they use similar concepts, including a straightforward approach, I would say, with concise melodies. But actually, one of the secrets that keeps the music fresh is, aside from their own skills as instrumentalists, improviser, and so on, it's just that they try out collaborations with different musicians. So here, the quintet features Micah Thomas. Is it Micah, Brian? Because this is one of those names that I don't want to get wrong.
Yeah, Micah Thomas.
Right. It's the first time I believe I say that name out loud. It's funny how that works sometimes. But anyways, he's on piano. Then we got Linda Mayhano on bass and Nate Smith on drums. And Thomas actually replaces Joe Ross from the previous record, vibraphonist or vibraphonist. That's another word. Mispronunciations all around.
Vibraphonist, yeah. I guess is how we would say it here.
Vibraphonist. But aside from actual compositions, there's one song that's really, really cool, and it's like an improvised piece called Lotto that shows how they just work so great as a collective unit.
Absolutely. And, again, proof that Walter Smith's compositions kind of foster that kind of collaboration, because like you mentioned, it's a new group of musicians, and you can actually see that on the album cover. I don't know if this was a result of being in lockdown, but the album cover is very funny. It's the In Common 1 album cover, and someone has just gone and photoshopped all the new members' heads
very
onto their bodies. I love it.
That's a really funny one.
There were great compositions here. There's one that also just works with an interval of a fifth, bump, 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 over and over again in the saxophone and guitar, and the rhythm section kind of modulates underneath it. And it's kind of a really fascinating listen and a great vehicle for improvisation as well. So podcast listeners, we are going to go ahead and listen to a track. Video watchers, we're going to move on to the next album on our list. And this one is, this is a fun one, Matt. It is by Archie Shepp. Let me see if I can get these pronunciations correct. Archie Shepp, Raw Poetic, and I guess it's Damu the Fudge Monk.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Their new album is Ocean Bridges. It will be released May 22nd on Redefinition Records. Archie Shepp, I know, is a avant-garde jazz saxophone icon. Raw Poetic, I'm less familiar with. Damu the Fudge Monk, I'm just learning about, but he's an incredible MC. And Matt, can you tell us a little bit about this record? It seems like an odd pairing, Archie Shepp with two rappers, or a rapper and a producer rather, but it turns out to be a really great listen.
Yeah, it does, because we were talking about hip hop and jazz, and certainly this is one of those albums that presents a unique blend of the two styles. There's a lot else happening with this, because actually Archie Shepp, Raw Poetic is an independent hip hop artist and the nephew of Archie Shepp, and they've collaborated in the past on a number of projects, but this is their first full-length collaborative project. So it's their full album together. And Archie Shepp, of course, you mentioned, major figure of avant-garde jazz, just a person that you'd want leading or as part of an ensemble, playing spontaneous music, which is kind of how the music on this album originated. And the ensemble itself is quite impressive. Damu the Fudge Monk shares top billing, but also another guy on this album is Luke Stewart of Irreversible Entanglements, another great band of creative music right now, of today. So there's lots of great players. And then Raw Poetic himself as the sole vocalist. This one really stands out to me because, like I said, it's a cool, unique blend of hip hop and jazz. And it's also a cool cross-generational project, which I think is also one of the driving themes as far as the lyrics are concerned.
Right. And now if you were to go back and listen to Archie Shepp, some of those classic albums. You think there's no way this could work on a hip hop beat. In Damu the Fudge Monk's hands, they absolutely do. He does some kind of subtle manipulations and loops. It's just a great vibe. And again, Raw Poetic is bringing up some really important themes at the moment, whether it's environmentalism or, African American experience or, a number of topics, really kind of penetrating insightful lyrics too. So again, if you want to stay in that hip hop kind of jazz meets hip hop lane, definitely worth a listen. If that's not your scene, it's also definitely worth a listen, because this is a style of music that you should definitely be aware of, that you should definitely, have on your radar. So podcast listeners, we're going to do just that. We're going to take a listen to a track. Video watchers, we're going to move along to the next album on the list. That would be the latest by pianist Matthew Shipp. The name of the album is The Piano Equation, and it will be released May 22nd on Tau Forms Records. So, Matt, we've seen Matthew Shipp in these 10 albums you need to know features before, but what's with his latest?
Yeah, this is an exciting project. I'm a big fan of solid, interesting solo works. Some may consider not the easiest style of music to listen to when it comes to really abstract sort of this type of music. But I love it because it really does have that ability to take me places when it's done by someone who is as great as Matthew Shipp. Who's no stranger to solo projects. And he's known for creating music which jazz and modern classical intertwine. So he has a very interesting way of exploring space, comes across as very inquisitive. And while the pieces on this album are brief, they sure take the listener on a fascinating journey. But the album is noteworthy too, because, and this is worth mentioning, it's the first official release on Tau Forms, which is a new label helmed by Whit Dickey, and is devoted to enlightened and elevated free jazz. And so we can look forward to more interesting releases from this label in the future, I think.
Yeah, and I kind of liked the short format of these songs. It reminded me of, say, like strolling through a museum. You just pause in front of a painting. You don't have to overanalyze it. You just experience for what it is. Let it take you somewhere, and then it's on to the next one. And Matthew Shipp's music is very much transportive. You feel like you're going somewhere. But especially on this release, he weaves enough familiar strains throughout it, so that you feel like you're grounded. You know where the music is going, and then just as that happens, you're on to the next one. So this is a good listen from front to back. If you could spin this album from front to back, I highly suggest it. Podcast listeners, we are going to take a listen to a track. Video watchers, we are going to actually pause for a quick second here. You too, Matt, to thank another one of our sponsors. I am talking, of course, about Mac Avenue Records. They've been putting us on the road to great music for more than 20 years now. If you want to start spinning some of their stuff right now, well, as soon as this episode is over, actually, I suggest a new album by Jimmy Green, While Looking Up. Jimmy is just a fantastic tenor sax player, so melodic, so lyrical. He's got a nice mix of original compositions and covers on this album, including I Just Want to Dance with Somebody by Whitney Houston. If you are into, like me, Tower Power, that soul funk vibe, you want to check out their latest album, Step Up. Both are available right now for streaming and purchase. If you want to pick up a copy yourself, go to macavenue.com. And thanks also to Smoke Sessions Records, a great label based out of Manhattan and a great club based out of Manhattan too. You will, when this thing is all said and done, you will find me there regularly. So let's have a drink. Their latest album is The Intangible In Between by pianist Orrin Evans and his Captain Black Big Band. Orrin, as I mentioned, is a piano player. He is also the latest member of the trio The Bad Plus. This is his signature big band, and he's just got a beautiful pen when it comes to writing for a big band. So this album is available for purchase as well. To pick up a copy, go to smokesessionsrecords.com. All right, Matt, let's go ahead and move on to the next album on our list. This one is from the famous Spanish Harlem Orchestra. Their new album is the Latin Jazz Project, and it will be released May 22nd on Artist Share. So what can you tell us about this one, Matt?
Well, this is another album first, because while the Spanish Harlem Orchestra has been around for a while and has had the reputation as one of the top salsa ensembles in the world, I think it's fair to say, They've only sporadically sort of shown their talents in the music that is referred to as Latin jazz. So the Latin Jazz Project is really the first one where they do so, embracing the all of the various elements of this transcendental, multicultural music, and joined by other great artists as well, including Kurt Elling and Dave Liebman, to name but a few.
Absolutely. Oscar Hernandez is the leader of this group, which is making, Latin jazz at the epicenter of Latin jazz in Upper Manhattan, where this music kind of originated in a lot of ways. The guest spots are all fantastic. Joe Locke on vibraphone, Kurt Elling, as you mentioned, on vocals. Yeah, and it was nice. It's great to see these artist share albums, which come out of a common good, people contributing to make this album a reality. And this one was absolutely worth every contribution. So thank you to everyone who made it possible. Podcast listeners, we're going to take a listen to a track. Video viewers, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next album on our list. This one is by Karolina Calvo. Now it's my turn to mispronounce something. Karolina Calvo. The name of the album is Vida Profunda. Will be released May 29th on Sunnyside Records. So, Matt, this is a great vocal album. I certainly enjoyed it. What can you tell us about it?
Yes, you are correct, sir. The pronunciation is Calvache.
Calvache.
You win a prize. I know it can be tough. Let's say it can be tough to actually pronounce these names because usually we see them written down. But we remain within the musical culture of Latin America. Calvache is actually a Colombian pianist and composer, as well as a renowned arranger, so on. I love her music. I really do. I'm very excited about this one. This album is actually finds her enhancing world-renowned poetry by such figures as Robert Duncan, Pablo Neruda, Gabriel Garcia Marquez, to name but a few again. That's another catchphrase, to name but a few. And I have to use it again because these words are performed with strings, woodwinds, great jazz instrumentalists, but also interpreting the words, some of the most prominent Latin American vocalists or voices, including Ruben Blades, Sofia Ribeiro. There's lots of reason to get excited about this one as well, especially if you like projects that match the beauty of poetry and the beauty of music in one.
Yeah, it's as much as I loved the poetic interpretation on this album, the guest spots by Ruben Blades, one of my favorite tracks on this album was her cover of Isfahan, the Duke Ellington tune. Really kind of a haunting, very touching rendition. So Karolina can do it all. And this is a great album for her. We certainly hope we can turn you on to an artist that you may have never heard of before. Podcast listeners, we are going to go ahead and listen to one of the tracks from the album. Video watchers, we're going to go ahead and move on. Sorry, Matt, was there something you wanted to say? You gave me there's something I wanted to say face.
No. I was like, oh my God. I was noticing that this is the last album of the thing. We really
it happens so
it's always
fast,
so surprising,
man.
Yeah.
I know. And we have 10 fingers. We should be able to keep track of these things, but it always happens so fast. But we're ending on a good note here. This last album is by it's a duo, Jean-Louis Martinier. How was that, Matt? You're my European pronunciation authority. And Kevin Siddiqui. The new album is Rivage. It will be released May 29th on ECM Records. Jean-Louis is an accordionist, and Kevin Siddiqui is a guitarist. They have played together in the past, but this is their first duo recording. So what else can you tell us about it?
Yeah, it's great. It's a great one to end on because we've been talking about records that are very transportive, and this one is definitely another transportive record. It's another great release by ECM. Embraces multiculturality. This has been a theme of this list, I feel, this month. And not unlike the projects of other great instrumentalists who've recorded on the ECM record label, like Anwar Brahim would be associated with. There's something magical about this one, Rivage, about the instrumentation itself too, because that pairing of the accordion and the guitar, there's something magical about it. And to the best of my knowledge, it's also quite rare. And also when you're talking about two master interpreters of these instruments, it's just a win-win. This album is made not entirely, mostly of original compositions and improvised pieces. There's also some traditional pieces here and there, but each one I think has the ability to take you to another place, maybe a jazz cafe or just another type of cinematic setting. It's just, or at some point in the past, it's just, I feel that this is a great album to end this list on too, because I feel like this is a great album to listen to at a time when most of the world is self quarantining. It really does have that ability to take you places.
So true. And we will go there. Podcast listeners, we're going to head and listen to a track. Video watchers, we have reached the end of our little video here. Those were the 10 albums you need to know for May 2020. We hope you go out there and listen to them. We hope you go out there and buy them to support these artists. And of course, we are covering all sorts of albums from every corner of the world every day on our website, jazzes.com. And we encourage you to check out all the new music that we're covering on our website. I should mention on our website, Matt, I get asked quite often from independent artists. I just released an album. I love if you could consider it for review for 10 albums you need to know, what have you. How should I get it in front of you? How should I send it in the mail? Are people opening mail anymore? What's the deal? I tell them you want to check out our Inside Track program. This is a program we have put together for independent artists. It allows you to just submit everything about your album online. The album name, the track listing, the personnel. You can send us a link to the album on Bandcamp or SoundCloud. It comes to my inbox. It comes to your inbox. It comes to all of our inboxes here at Jazzes. And we promise we do listen to this stuff. And you never know. It could wind up with a Song of the Day post. You could wind up in a weekly Discover playlist. You could wind up, like I said, in the pages of our magazine or on this very video series. So independent artists and friends of independent artists, please check out Inside Track Program. Go to jazzes.com, click submit your music in the top navigation bar. Matt, hey, thank you for helping us kickstart the week of Jazz's Happy Hours. We've got some great interviews coming up throughout the week, including tomorrow we'll be talking with Ted Poor, a drummer who has a new album coming out very soon. We're also going to have journalist Mark Stryker on the show, formerly of the Detroit Free Press. He's an expert on all things jazz in Detroit. He's going to be walking us through the Detroit scene. We're going to be joined by another drummer too, Casa Overall. And then on Friday, as a major player, we talked about that hip hop, R&B crossover jazz thing. Casa is a major figure in that. And then we're going to be wrapping things up on Friday with vocalist Linda Pearl, who has a new album coming out. Matt Micucci, are you a The Office fan?
Well, The Office UK, yes.
Oh, okay. Well, here, the Office US, there was a character, Pam, whose mother, Helen, dated Steve Carell. Linda Pearl played Pam's mother. So you know her from The Office. I think she was also Fonzie's girlfriend in Happy Days.
Wow, that's a big fan of.
So she's had a stellar career as an actress, but she also happens to be a very talented jazz vocalist. We're going to be speaking to her on Friday.
Wow.
Matt, and
Happy Hour is just the happiest hour ever now that you're doing all these interviews.
It absolutely is. So we invite you to pour yourself a cocktail. I usually have one, but not at the moment. I'm, trying to keep for talking with you, man. You can be so disorienting. I've got to keep
I know. Head. It's been a pretty crazy one this month. Let's just face it. I don't know. I don't know what it was. Maybe there's something in the air, but
could be. It seems like every hour needs to be happy hour at this point.
We need to get out.
Exactly. And we're starting to bit by bit. But Matt, hey man, thank you so much for joining me to walk us through the 10 albums you need to know for May 2020. Matt has his own incredible video series called Jazz's Essentials, where he walks us through some seminal moments in jazz, whether it's important albums or, important recording sessions, concerts, festivals, what have you. Check those out on our YouTube page as well. Matt, thanks again for putting on a shirt and talking with us this afternoon.
Yeah, it's a good thing you didn't say. I don't know if I should make that joke, but we all know, you see all these live streams and you're always wondering, are these people wearing pants? Because most of them it's only from the waist up at most. But anyways,
viewers, we can assure you, with Jazzes, we are professionals. We all wear pants.
Yeah. Definitely trust us on this one, folks.
Exactly
All
right.
right, it's been a pleasure, Brian. Thank you very much, and thank you all for watching. And I hope you go check out this music and make your own music explorations. And if you find anything that we missed out on, let us know. We'd love to hear it.
We'll see you again for the 10 albums you need to know for June 2020. So long, everyone.
So long.
Bye.